Hey everybody, welcome to another MSP Channels Interviews with All Things MSP. My name is Eric Anthony. I am the owner, operator, whatever of All Things MSP. I just, I do the interviews around here. I run the website. I do some videos. You guys know that. But most importantly, today I have Brian Doty here from Unitrends, who Amelia Paro, if you haven't seen her interview, go back and watch that one. But she recommended that Brian reach out to me to do an interview. And I think the reason she did it, because I'm interested in backstories of people who are in the channel, right?
Hey guys, ever since I upgraded to macOS Monterey, I've been having trouble with Bluetooth. And this was right after I had upgraded. There's something wrong with the Bluetooth, and that's why my AirPods are creating this stupid audio. So apologies in advance. Enjoy the rest of the interview.
And Brian has one of those interesting stories where he's gone from the vendor side of things to the MSP side of things and then back again to the vendor side of things. So I thought that was an interesting story and that you guys would want to hear it too. So Brian, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on, Eric. I really appreciate the time and being on here with you.
Yeah, no problem. So you've been at Unitrends now for how long?
A little over a year now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your role over there?
So I'm the channel development manager here. So I go to all the MSP industry events and evangelize the community on, best practices for backing up your clients' data, those sorts of things,
Awesome. Well, I know, we talked a little bit before this, and I know that your enthusiasm for the channel is the same as mine. And we're both really glad that we've been able to get back out there this year and get on the road and see people in person. But let's kind of spin back to your backstory. And why don't you spend a couple of minutes telling us about your backstory and how you ended up in this thing we call the channel.
Yeah, and I can assure you it was totally an accident. I always like to say I grew up in the copier business. Working for a small copier dealer in Philadelphia. We specialized in managed print services and did a lot of that kind of work. And so I went from there to Xerox and it started managing some partners. And when they did a mass layoff, I started looking around to see what else was out there. And I knew that the copier industry in and of itself wasn't necessarily a growth-oriented industry, but what really was this thing called the managed services business. And I noticed that there were a lot of managed services practices out there. I had dealt with a few of them in my dealings at Xerox. And so I went to work for Continuum. And that was kind of my entree into the channel and working with MSPs. And admittedly, it was a little overwhelming at first. There was a lot to take in there. But, now that I've been involved and I worked for Continuum for a couple of years and then worked for an MSP for a couple of years, I sort of a pattern in my career history to work for, an industry, business and then work for the vendors that sell to them and kind of understand a little bit deeper what that business owner goes through as an MSP. So, the things that they're dealing with, trying to increase sales and trying to stay up on all the technical standards and secure their clients' data. There's a lot of things that'll keep you up at night as an MSP. And so I can empathize with that. I can truly understand what's happening there on a daily basis. And it's not easy.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Now your role at that MSP, if I remember correctly from our conversation, was to really kind of try and scale that business. And so what are some of the lessons you learned during that time that might help some of the people watching this interview today?
So, you can't boil the ocean. Right? So you have to align with a strategy, right? One thing that I definitely did wrong was taking a lot of advice from a lot of different people and then kind of going into a tailspin to try to figure out what's the thing that I should be focused on next. You need a a blueprint for success. We did subscribe to a couple of things very lightly. I would say, check some things out. There's a lot of great advice out there in the channel, but try to figure out what resonates with you and stick to it and stay with that program, whatever it is, and have some skin in the game. Don't be afraid to commit to something, but you have to commit to it and you have to stay with it. Marketing, I think for MSPs is a huge challenge, and driving those leads into you. And that is how you scale and grow this. You're not going to do it by cold calling and even word of mouth. That's great business and that will help you grow, but you need an engine for growth, and you need marketing to provide you leads and opportunities. And you can't just listen to all the noise out there. You have to kind of figure out what you think you're going to do and what's going to work for you, and then stick with it and run it through its course.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when it comes to marketing. You're absolutely right. There are a ton of people out there giving advice, and their advice is not wrong. Okay.
Correct. It's good advice.
Most of the time, their advice does work. The problem is exactly what you said, is we do two things. We take all of that advice and try and do all of it at one time.
Yep.
And we don't measure it and do it long enough to actually give it a chance to succeed and know whether or not it worked versus something that we tried 6 months ago. Because in marketing, you have to do that. Marketing evolves constantly. And so you have to take a strategy, just like you said. You have to take a strategy. You have to deploy that marketing strategy for a minimum of 3 months, if not 6.
Oh, yeah.
Measure it. And if it works, double down. If it stops working, try something else.
Shift. Yeah.
Yeah. Marketing is one of those strange animals where it is constantly changing, and it's changing faster than most business owners want to keep up. You mentioned word of mouth. Word of mouth was the golden goose when I had my break fix, and actually still for a little while I had my MSP. It worked. It worked like a charm. I didn't really need to do a lot else to have a steady growth curve. However, that has changed. That is not the case.
Absolutely.
Now, does it still work? Yes, word of mouth absolutely still works. It just doesn't work the same as it did 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the MSP I worked for certainly grew his business that way. He's very successful. Fantastic retention of clients. Not necessarily built for growth. And, there's challenges with that. And I think, like I said, you really have to stick with something to make it work, and not just try to hop all over the place. And, I think I learned that lesson the hard way.
We all did, right?
Yeah.
All of us who started out in this kind of, and didn't have a marketing background had to learn that lesson the hard way.
Absolutely.
And it's really important. The measurement is the important piece. And that's the piece that so many people just kind of like, well, I'll measure it later. No, you need to measure it now, because even if it's working now, you need to know when it starts to make that downturn so that you can pivot.
Right. And dial it back up, whether, you shift into a different geographic region, or a different way to capture leads, or different content, or different events that you're hosting or getting involved in, different groups. There's so many things out there, but it's like you do have to kind of know what works for you, and stick with that, and keep doubling down on it, like you said, if it's something that is producing results for you. So, and we started to see that until the pandemic hit, and then it sort of became, very challenging to go out and meet people face to face from that net new standpoint. But certainly, being able to serve those clients that you already have, and make sure that they can work remotely and things like that, that part of it was rather rewarding as well,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pandemic changed so many things for this industry in terms of not just in terms of how we deliver services to clients and what services clients needed, which was a huge boon to this industry, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
For everybody needing to be able to work off site now, it wasn't like, we have 3 months to ramp this up. No, everybody needs to work from home now.
Exactly.
And the fact that it's going to continue that way. It was always interesting to me. I always thought there's a couple of things that, if you go back to TV series that happen in the future, like Star Trek, and you look at some of the revolutionary changes that you see, people not working for money, people, working from home, you always wonder when those inflection points are going to happen and what's going to be the trigger. Well, we actually got to see one. And it was very interesting. And among, obviously there's a lot that's terrible about the whole COVID pandemic and all of that. But
Sure.
It is interesting to see some of the positive things that have come out of it.
Yeah. I mean, Microsoft was adding 4 to 5 million subscribers to Office 365 like through the pandemic. It's just insane amount of growth in that platform, and it sort of plateaued. I mean, there's still growth there, but it's just it's amazing. And I think in a lot of ways they enabled it to happen, for people to be able to work remotely and make sure that they can share files, they can still communicate as if they were in the office. And yeah, there's a lot of things that aren't the same as being in an office, but seeing the way that that's shifted, it's totally different. And then how do you protect those clients? Because now that data is sitting in somebody's home network, on their Comcast modem / router / firewall.
Yeah, exactly. Security has become a whole different animal now, right?
Yeah.
Because while we still need to secure the endpoints, we also need to secure the cloud, secure the unstructured data, which is what Ignite does. And of course, we still need to back it up. So, perfect segue to what is Unitrends doing these days, and what are you specifically doing at Unitrends to do that evangelizing that you were talking about?
Well, that's it. That is a great segue, Eric. Thank you for that. Look, that shift into the cloud, a lot of people are trusting and relying on Microsoft or Google, for that matter, to house this data in those platforms, right? And a lot of it now is sensitive data. It has PHI, PII, contained in it, and I forget what the one the government uses that. But the confidential information that's sitting in those platforms, it needs to be backed up. And a lot of the vendors themselves, they say that you should use a third-party backup solution. And so, for a lot of MSPs, that means adding another backup solution into their stack. And, for us, it's just a part of the platform, and it's all one login to UniView. So whether we're putting a physical appliance on site to virtualize locally and in the cloud to provide that continuity for your clients, whether it's that or their SaaS backup or a direct to cloud solution, it doesn't matter. All that backup lives in one place in our platform, it's fantastic. And it makes the MSP, especially an MSP that's trying to really scale their business and mature, it gives them that ability to, kind of live in one place for all their backup stuff, so to speak. And I know that makes life a little bit easier for MSPs, but we're also doing a lot in testing those backups that not a lot of other solutions do, right? So a lot of solutions give you that green checkbox, make you feel good about the success of a backup, but they're not really testing the ability to virtualize that environment. And that's something that we do and we automate, because what I'm finding out is MSPs are either spending a ton of time on it or they're not doing it. They're taking some shortcuts there. And so in the age of ransomware that we live in today, you've got to test your backups. You got to make sure that you can rely on them if you need to, because your clients are going to depend on that. And it could be a very bad situation if you can't spin up that data for them or spin up that environment for them. So we do a lot with testing that, and we automate it to kind of reduce that time that your technicians need to spend on it. And so, another thing that we've seen, and we've just recently launched it, like this week, we launched it. I might even be a little ahead of the curve here, but that's okay. I'll announce it. We now have a small appliance that won't virtualize locally, but will do a full BCDR backup and replicate into the cloud, where you can fully virtualize that. And that comes at a lower hardware price point, keeps the cost a lot more competitive, so MSPs can make the kind of margins that they're used to making. So hopefully that'll help out there in the community. So it's actually called the Ion. So if anybody's using Unitrends or wants any information about that, we can certainly get them more information about the Ion.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've held for a long time that we shouldn't be selling backup. We should be selling restore.
Right.
The problem is the backup is what you do every day to make sure that you can restore. But you make a great point. It's that testing to make sure that the restore is viable that really matters. So anyway, Brian, it was great to get to meet you today. I don't know how we haven't run into each other in the past. I mean, especially with as many mutual friends in the channel that we have. But I'm sure that we'll see each other. And now we know each other, so we can go out and we can actually find each other.
That's right.
I think my first show of the year is probably, I think it's Exchange.
Exchange. Okay.
And then I will be at Channel Pro.
Okay.
In New Jersey. So if you're
I'm
there,
definitely going to Channel Pro in New Jersey. Exchange is up in the air yet because I'm going to have like 5 weeks back to back to back, and I have 3.5 children.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Thank you guys very much for watching this video, watching this interview. And if you are interested in being interviewed on MSP Channel Interviews, please reach out. Let me know. I'm looking for vendors as well as MSPs, and we've had a lot of vendors. So now it's time to interview a lot of MSPs. So if you're an MSP and you want to come on here and talk about how you got into this business, maybe your current struggles, maybe your successes, so that other people can learn from what you're doing, that would be awesome. So until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, everyone. Take care.